Hey everyone, Mr. Hutch here, and today we are going to talk about how to create a keychain in Tinkercad. All right, now open up Tinkercad app on your iPad and let's go ahead and get started. Today is all about the details. If you don't want to just figure out how to do it in more of an inquiry way, this will guide you through all the details, all the reasons why things are done, so that you can get a little bit more support in designing this. So I'm going to walk through. You can see the end product, and if I hit play here, I'll do it at medium speed. You can see the overall process of what's happening. We're creating a rectangular prism, adding a circular top to it, our keychain hole, some text is going to be embossed on top, and then we just duplicate the object and pretty much create the same thing with one little twist, which is making giant letters this time and grouping them so that they create a transparent hole. All right, now let's walk through this step by step. I'm going to go through and I will click the step button and walk you through this. So the very first thing we did was pull out create new object, and I just renamed the variable and titled that whatever I wanted. I'm going to add a rectangular prism to that, and my dimensions are going to be 35 by 50 with a height of 2. If you do a height of 4 and you end up putting these two keychain pieces together, it's just a little thick being 8 millimeters, but the 2 and 2, if you do decide to put the keychains together, having a 4 millimeter thickness is pretty good. All right, now next is moving those, because as we know, half of our object is under the work plane. So I'm just going to move it up half of the height. Since the height is 2, I'm moving that up 1. All right, now we're going to add that circular shape for the top. You really could do anything you want. I'm just choosing to do it this way. Now, what I'm doing is I'm making my radius be 17.5 because that is half of my rectangle width. And you can see underneath what's going on. And then what I did was I scaled down the y-axis. And I just played with some things until I got a good shape that I thought would be good for the top of my keychain. All right, now I need to move it up to the top. Now what I'll do is I'll let you know if I did like a guess and check thing or I did actual math to figure something out. So the scaling down for the circle was guess and check. I tried scaling it down by 0.5. It was a little bit too big. I did scale it down 0.25. It was too small, and so I ended up at 0.35. I moved it up on the y-axis, and I did count some spaces to try to get it perfect, but had to do some fine tuning at the end. I do recommend when you do things like that, zoom in and make sure that those intersections really do line up before grouping that. All right, next I'm going to create the group, but make sure that we're still on solid for that grouping, and you will see that it changes everything to red there. All right, we are now going to create that perimeter engraving. So what I'm doing is I'm adding another rectangular prism. You can see my original one was 35. This one's 31. It was a length of 50. This one's going to be 46. So basically I'm just adding a rectangular prism that is just a little bit smaller. So we'll add that in there. And if you take a look underneath, you can see the shape of what I'm adding. So I'm just creating a little technical feature here. Let's go ahead and hit next, and I raise it up, and you can see I'm raising that up so it's a little bit higher. I raised it up 2 millimeters, and then I'm going to create a group. But when I added this shape, if you look over here on the code blocks, notice that the solid circle is not selected, but that I selected this transparent feature. And so what that did was I actually added a transparent rectangular prism so that when I grouped it, it created a hole of that shape. Okay, and I didn't want the hole to go all the way through. I just wanted it to cut into my rectangle. All right, now that I've created that hole by creating the group, I'm going to add another rectangle. Notice the size. Okay, my hole-shaped rectangle was 31. I'm a little bit smaller, 29. Okay, so I went 2 smaller on the width and then 2 smaller on the length. Okay, so I scaled that down. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. If we look underneath, you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, I'm going to raise this up now. And I only moved it up by 1 this time so that it is flush with the surface of the main part. And this is what created that little engraved perimeter. So just a neat little feature. All right, let's go ahead and get our keychain hole there. So I added a transparent, if you look at this angle, you can see it's a transparent cylinder. I chose a radius of 2.5, height of 8, and now we're gonna move it up into space here. I did count how far I wanted it, and I got to 26, realized 26.5 was really where I wanted that, and then raise it up 2 millimeters on the z-axis. But you can make this as big as you want. You just need to make sure it's above and below your object so that when we group it right now, it creates a hole. All right, so I have my keychain hole there, and now it's time to add text. So I drug over the text. I do want it to be solid. I don't want to make a hole. And the height is going to be 2. And then let's see what that looks like. We'll go ahead and hit that. You can see it put it right there like that. I do need to rotate it around the Z 90 degrees. And then I'm just moving things in place. So I'm going to move it on the x-axis 7, and then I did move it up 2 to get it a little bit higher than my object because I do want it to stick up. So you can see what that did to it by coding it that way. All right, now that I've done that, I do want to scale the whole thing down so it fits in here. This is a guess and check. And with whatever you type, it's going to be guess and check because your letters are different than mine. So I just manipulated that and scaled that down. Now I'm going to add another set of text, same dimensions as the other. Go ahead and rotate that just the same. And then do some guessing and checking to move it into place and scale it down just like we did before. And then I'm going to create that group. Again, make sure when you add those text, you are adding solid text, not transparent. We'll group that, and now we have a complete keychain, and everything is grouped how it needs and connected. Now, because I'm going to add the other side of the keychain now, I want to move this out of the way. Okay, so I added a move code just to move this over to the left 50 millimeters. So you'll see that happen next. And there we go. So now I need to pretty much duplicate this. I don't want to rewrite the code. So I'm going to hold my finger on the create new object up here. And when I hold my finger on it, it opens up the duplicate menu. And I can go ahead and hit duplicate and then create new object again. And it will duplicate everything down below like this. And then all I have to do is make little tweaks. So I'm going to continue to hit next, and you can see we have create new object. It adds my rectangle just like before. It moves it up just like I need. It adds the cylinder and moves everything in place just like before. This is nothing different because I just duplicated all those lines of code. Same thing with creating my engraved rectangular prism and that little detail of that perimeter. There's my keychain hole as before. I bring on some text. I did choose to change the font for this one, but same thing, we rotate it around. Now here is something to be aware of. Notice that I had to rotate this negative 90 degrees, not 90, because when these two pieces fold over and either get glued on or we adhere them some other way, I want the text to be all, the base of the text all to be the same direction. And so that's why I rotated that negative 90 so that when I flip it, the bottom of my text is on the same, facing the same way. All right, now I'm going to just adjust my text so that it is going through the top and the bottom. So this is a big difference. I chose a text size of 6 because I know this is going to be my hole, and I just want it to I mean, you could make it gigantic. I just need it to go above my object and below so that when I group it, it makes a hole. So I just picked 6 because I knew that was plenty big enough. I moved it up a little bit to just make sure it was above and below everything. I'm going to scale it down so it fits exactly where I want. This is a guess and check based on your text. And then I'm going to group it. At the same time, I chose what color I wanted that to be. So I'm choosing white. Obviously, it depends on what filament you put in the 3D printer anyway. So there is my keychain. And then what I'll need to do is up in Code Blocks itself, I will have to take this particular one, Hutch Both, and I will have to duplicate it and then delete the one with the hole and make another one, and then delete the solid one and make another file. That way I can actually send each individual STL file to the printer. If you just want them both to be the same color, you could go ahead and hit export and send this STL, and it'll print both of them on one base plate. All right, so that is how you create the keychains. If you want to manipulate anything a little bit, you are more than welcome to do so. There's a lot of creativity that can happen with this, but those are the details if you wanted that kind of support. All right, nice job. I'll see you next time.